Hi everyone, welcome to the Laval Virtual World and Learning Alliance conference is about to begin. Follow us in the conference room.
Oh.
For you, normally you should see my presentation on the middle screen. Oh, Anna is here. Perfect. We were looking for you. Anna is our keynote speaker. Hello, Anna. Thank you for being here. We were kind of nervous. I'm glad you're here now. Perfect. Well, we have everything set up to start the conference opening. So my name is Isa Marfizi-Schottman. I'm the general chair of this edition of the Gala conference, and let's start the conference opening. So welcome to the 9th edition of the Games and Learning Alliance Conference. As you all know, this is an international scientific conference dedicated to serious games. The goal is to bring together researchers, developers, practitioners, such as teachers and schools. There's someone who has an open mic, and it must be someone who, because I can hear my echo. So if you do have an open microphone, please cut it off. It's on the left. Thank you. So if you're not speaking, please turn off your microphone. Excellent. That's much better. Nope, I can still hear it. Okay, whatever. So the conference, the Games and Learning Alliance conference, is organized every year by the Serious Games Society, which is a nonprofit cultural association. Its goal is to build an international scientific community around serious games, around the topic. In addition to organizing the yearly conference, it also publishes the International Journal of Serious Games, organizes webinars, engages in social networking, and also holds a blog with the latest innovations in serious games. This year, the local organization team comes from the LUM, which is the Computer Science Laboratory of Le Mans University. And this morning, we are very privileged and happy to welcome Laurent Bourquin, who is the Research Vice President of Le Mans University. So please cheer for Laurent Bourquin. You can press F4 to say bravo. I'm going to ask Laurent to come.
Bravo!
Thank you, thank you. How do I say? Come here, Laurent. Thank you, perfect. So Laurent's going to say a few words about Le Mans University, and then Sébastien Georges, who is the director of LUM, will present a few slides on our lab. Go ahead, Laurent, we're listening to you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Laurent Bourquin, and yes, I'm the Vice President of Le Mans University in charge of research. I regret you could not come to Laval in person to enjoy the charms of our beautiful city. I hope you will be able to do so later when the situation permits. But there are many of you here today, which I'm delighted about. We owe this success to Laval Virtual World, which is hosting us for 2 days. But we also, and above all, owe it to all the colleagues who have worked hard to prepare this conference, Isa, and the whole lab. Volume is one of the labs of our university, located in Laval and Le Mans. You know the technology-enhanced learning team, the largest French team specialized in this field. But our university is thus composed of 15 labs, about 1,000 colleagues and 13,000 students. Its identity is twofold. A university rooted in its territory, which offers high-quality training to its fellow citizens, especially in Laval, but also a research of very high scientific level. Several labs have a high international profile. This Games and Learning Alliance conference, organized in Mayenne and open to the world, is therefore emblematic of a strategy that we have built and developed throughout our history. So I'm very, very happy to inaugurate it, to welcome you, and to wish you a very good work. Thank you very much.
Please press F4. Thank you very much, Laurent. I think Sébastien is now going to come present a few slides about the LUME.
Thank you, Isa. Thank you, Laurent. Hello, everyone. My name is Sébastien Georges. I'm full professor of computer science at Le Mans University. I teach at the Laval Institute of Technology, and as a member of the organization team, I'm very happy to welcome you to the Gala conference. I'm the head of LUME, a laboratory in computer science, and I will present it very quickly. LUME is composed of 50 people, half working in a team doing research in language and speech technologies like automatic transcription, and the other team works in the field of technology and enhanced learning. I don't know, Isa, if you can display the next slide, please.
Sure.
So the tech team is composed of 15 permanent researchers and 10 PhD students or postdoctoral fellows. This actually makes it the largest research team in France on technology and enhanced learning. The team is both located in Laval and in Le Mans. Next slide, please.
Yes.
Thanks. So the team works on 3 main topics. The first one is about the design and the adaptation of pedagogical situations. And for example, we develop authoring tools for teachers. The second topic concerns learning analytics from traces and the design of dashboards with indicators. And the third topic deals with advanced human-computer interaction to support learning. And one kind of tell system we are especially interested in is serious game. We are also exploring the educational value of virtual or augmented reality. So if you want to know more about LUME Lab, you can watch a short video on Gala website to see several of our projects, and you can also visit the LUME website. So I see a lot of people in the room. Thank you for being here, and I hope you will enjoy the program for these 2 days. Have a nice conference and see you later.
Thank you so much, Sébastien. We are now 100 in the conference hall, so this is great. You can applaud yourselves too if you want. Okay, thank you very much. So yes, if you are interested in our projects, please go see on our website. We have French pages and English pages. Well, it's translated in French and in English. So this year we welcome you in the Laval virtual world. This is a special type of venue. It was designed last year by Virbela for the Laval virtual exhibit. This is the largest exhibit in Europe about virtual reality, and last year it welcomed 11,000 visitors. So this is quite a huge exhibit. All year round, it also hosts events related to virtual reality, like our conference. So for this edition, for this online edition, we really wanted to recreate an environment that was as good as real. So this is why we chose the Laval virtual world and not a cheaper alternative like Zoom, for example, or I don't know, any other video conference system. One of the advantages of the Laval virtual world is that you can interact almost normally with other attendees, either by speaking to them. You've tried that already. You can also use the public chat on the bottom left. I see that lots of people are writing in it. So this is where you can put comments or questions during the conference. And you can also use the private chat functionality. Just click on the name of the person that you recognize on the left and send a private chat. That way you can tell jokes between each other. This is what you would have probably done if you had been here for real. An important an important aspect of the Laval virtual world is also the spaces in between the conference halls. So just roam around the world, bump into people and socialize just as you would have done if you were here. We also have a social event planned for tonight. It's a treasure hunt that will allow you to discover the whole world. We hope to see you at that event tonight. And of course, you have super powers being an avatar. So I don't know if you've tried dancing already. I really like the backflip. I've always wanted to do this in the real life, but never been able to. So please try out the superpowers that you have. And if you're nice, maybe at the end of the conference, I'll show you how to fly. Maybe. We also wanted to take advantage of this online edition to try to make something maybe better than real by really creating a sense of community, a scientific community. This is why we really invested time and energy into our Twitter account. If you have Twitter, you probably noticed the challenges and all the tweets that we've been doing on the account that's at GalaConf 2020. The objective was to engage in interactions before, during, and after the conference, so please don't hesitate to tweet with the hashtag GalaConference 2020. The tweets will be visible at all times on the screen where my face is right now, on the right. So you will be able to see your tweets during the conference here and in other places in the world. We also have the services of a professional community manager for a few days. Her name is Celia. I don't know where she is. She should be somewhere here in the conference room. Anyway, if you see her, please talk to her and please tweet. This would be great. This is kind of an experiment, so I don't know if it's going to work or not. You can tell me what you think of it, and in any case, we were happy to try this experiment out. Now, we also thought that we could take advantage of this complicated situation with the lockdown to try to think of a scientific conference otherwise. This is why we wanted this conference to be free and online and completely open for attendees, which is the case. And we really believe that this is an opportunity as researchers to show our results to general public. So we were 440 registrations this morning, but obviously we didn't all show up this morning, but we are 104 right now in this conference hall, which is much more than we would have had if we had done a normal conference. Usually the Gala conference attracts maybe 50, maybe 70 maximum researchers. So the fact that we are so many, oops, sorry, I don't know what happened. Oh no, I have a little problem with my slides. Sorry. The fact that we're so many is really great for us. And you can also see that we have different profiles. We have quite a few academic researchers, of course, students, but also companies, a few teachers, journalists, government. So I welcome everyone to this conference, and we're really happy to have you around. And this should be really interesting. As I said, this conference will be broadcast live on YouTube for those who have problems connecting to the Laval virtual world. It is also much more eco-friendly than a normal conference. I'm not saying that all conferences in the future should be like this. I'm very impatient to be able to travel again, but maybe this experience is something that we can inspire us for the future. So let's talk about the Gala conference program. We have 2 days that are packed full with research presentations and social events. For those who do not know how a scientific conference works, we received 77 papers, which are research articles of 10 pages long. These research pages, these 77 submissions were actually, it's the same number as last year, which was a record. So that's great. It shows that our community is strong, despite the fact that the times are a bit complicated. This year, 20% of those submissions came from France, 15 from Germany, which is really a big number. Maybe they want to be the next Gala organizers. Nudge. and a record number of submissions from the US and Canada, which is probably due to the online edition.
So it's sending the audio to my Yeti microphone.
Oops, someone's talking. Thank you. So these papers, the 77 articles, were submitted to a blind peer review process. This means that they were read by researchers in the same domain and evaluated. We accepted only 35 of these articles as full papers, and those are the articles that will be presented during the 2 days of the conference. We also accepted 10 papers as short papers, which will be presented during the exhibit tomorrow afternoon. The articles, so the 35 full articles and 10 short articles are compiled into what we call proceedings, which are edited by Springer Nature, and normally you received a link to that this morning in the email. And the authors of the best papers will be invited shortly to submit extended versions to the International Journal of Serious Games. So as I said, we will have lots of scientific talks these 2 days, 35 presentations of the full papers by their authors. We have 17 countries that are represented. The full articles you can find, so if you like the presentations, you can find the full articles in the proceedings, and you can also find the slides of the presentations on the detailed program on the website. This might be handy if you have a problem with the, if you have a technical problem and you can't see some of the slides. This unfortunately happens sometimes. So you can go on the website and download the slides. We also have 2 keynotes, Anna Cox from the UK, which will present right after me, and Anne-Gwen Bousset from France, from Brest. So we have 2 days with lots of paper sessions and events. We expect the speakers to be here during the entire conference, so the whole 2 days. If you're just here because you're curious about serious games and or scientific conference, feel free to just come to whatever you want. We're happy to have you. Speaking of which, here are the highlights that I think you do not want to miss during the conference. First of all, we have our 2 keynotes. So Anna Cox will present at 10 a.m. right after me. She will talk about games for academic life. So I'm sure this will interest all of our academic fellows. And Anne-Gwen Bousset will present tomorrow morning at 9:30, a talk about immersive games that they've created at the Centre Européen de Réalité Virtuelle, which is at Brest in France. This year, we also organized a competition, as every year actually, at the Games and Learning Alliance conference. We had 30 submissions in the academic, student, and business category. This year, we had a special focus on innovative human-computer interactions. We had lots of very interesting submissions and games. We will announce the winners of this competition during the award ceremony, which will take place tomorrow at 14:45 in the dance hall. You can go see the nominees on the website and on Twitter, and there's also the videos of these really cool games, so I think that might interest you. During the award ceremony, we will also announce the best paper nominee and the best student paper nominee. So these articles were exceptionally good. So this means that the presentations should also be exceptionally good. I wrote down the times on the bottom of the slide so you can see when they present. I think there's 2 today and 2 tomorrow. If there's one moment, if there's just one time when you want to come to the conference, I do think that the best would be to come to the exhibition. It's really something that you do not want to miss. This will take place in the exhibition hall. We have 42 booths that are ready for you with games and virtual reality tools from all over the world, including French companies and labs. So please come and walk around and talk to the researchers and companies who've created those tools. Tonight we've prepared a treasure hunt for you, and I'm sure you're going to like it. It's at 6 p.m. in the dance hall. You don't need to sign up, just show up before 6 p.m. in the dance hall. It will be a collaborative treasure hunt that will allow you to explore the world. Basically, there's been a time glitch and you have 1 hour to save the world. And obviously, since we work on serious games, you didn't think we were going to create a game that wasn't a little bit serious. So while you're saving the world, you will learn about 8 women who made the history of computer science. At the end of the conference, tomorrow at 5 p.m., you are all invited to the Serious Game Society General Assembly. This will be on old-fashioned Zoom. You can access the presentation, you can access the Zoom all the way, the bottom is all the way at the bottom of the program page. This General Assembly is very important to decide on the future of the Serious Game Society, of the conference, and also decide on all the events that will be carried out during the year, such as webinars, workshops, and game jams. So please be there. To finish, I would like to thank the organization team. So press F4 and just continue pressing it until I finished to applaud. Thank you very much. I would like to emphasize the fact that this was really a team effort. I think someone's really clapping. That's good. So this was really a team effort. We're 19 people in the entire staff. I would really like to thank in particular Ludovic, who did a great job with the reviewing process of the articles. I would like to thank Pierre Laforcade, who did a great job for the exhibition, especially because it's just so huge. There's 40 booths, so you will have a nice time, but it was probably quite complicated to set up. Thank you, Janneke, for finding such interesting keynotes. Thank you, Aus, for taking care of the competition. I'm not going to say all the names because we're so many, we would still be here this afternoon. But the local organization chairs and supports were also really fantastic. Thank you, Aisha, who's been updating the website. And thank you to Gail, who created and designed the treasure hunt that you will play tonight. If you need help, the entire organization committee is dressed in green with green t-shirts, so you should be able to recognize us. If you are dressed in green, I think I see a few of you dressed in green and you are not part of the organization committee, I suggest you get changed fast before you are harassed by questions. To finish, I would like to thank our sponsors, without which we would not be here. So thank you to them, especially the gold sponsors, Immersive Factory, Numix, and Open University. F4, please, F4. Thank you. Before we get started with the first keynote, I just wanted to give you a few attendee tips. First of all, use a headset. It's much better for our sound experience, and turn your microphone off when you're not speaking. This is very important. Second of all, be nice and constructive in the comments that you give people. You can write comments and questions in the public chat on the bottom left. I have to remind you that you are being filmed and broadcast live on YouTube. If you do not want your names that are above your avatars to appear in those videos, you can change them. Just ask one of the organization team. Just explore the world, because it's a beautiful world. So just go around, explore it, and meet new people. Tweet with the hashtag GalaConf 2020 and enjoy the conference. So I finished my speech. Thank you. I finished my speech. I will now let Anna Cox put her slides on. I will take my video. Perfect. Anna, do you need any help to set up your slides?
I'm just hoping that I can. Oh, that looks like that's working.
Great. Do you want to show your face on the webcam or with the webcam or not?
I'm going to try and do that.
Okay, then just go up to the left. Perfect.
There we go.
Excellent. Great. Thank you so much. I'll go sit down in the public.
Oh, hang on. Okay. I think I have everything where I need it now. Okay. So first of all, I just want to say thank you very much for having me. It's really exciting to be here, and this is, I suppose, this is my first real virtual conference experience like this. I think this world looks amazing, and it's really great to have a go at doing this presentation within this environment. So I want to talk to you about games for academic life, and I feel like maybe I should put the word academic in the title in brackets, because I think my message generalizes beyond academic life, but I've kind of framed it that way, given that that's largely the environment in which I've gathered most of this data that I'm going to talk to you about. So academic life seems to be increasingly shaped by metrics that measure how happy we've made our students, how many papers we've published, how many people have cited those papers, and how much money we've generated to support our research. And as a result, we seem to appear on a number of leaderboards that have these kind of metrics displayed on them. And the pressure that comes from being placed on these leaderboards has contributed to the high rates of mental ill health and suicide amongst academics that we've seen appear, be mentioned in our popular press increasingly over the past few years. And of course, this year, arguably, things have got even worse. So with the pandemic, we have seen many academics have to adapt to new ways of doing their jobs. For many, they had to pivot overnight to delivering remote teaching. They had to change their assessments to deal with the fact that in-person exams couldn't be held. Some have had to find new ways to do their research. Others have been stalled with no way to continue actually to gather their data without the possibility of either travel to the site where they might normally do their research or actually go into their university lab. So in this talk, I want to talk to you about 3 strands of my research that show how some of the particular struggles that people have experienced in switching to remote work over the past 9 months, and also outline how I think we can use games for the serious purposes of helping ourselves and our students create strong working relationships and to cope with work-related stress. So in addition to conducting research on game experience and how those experiences impact people, I've long been interested in understanding how people use technology to get their work done, and also the role of those mobile technologies in blurring or creating boundaries between work and home. So back in March, when countries around the world implemented various different social distancing regulations that required their citizens to stay at home and, if they could, work at home, I realised that there was an amazing opportunity for me to research how people adapted to that situation, but also an opportunity to help them. So together with Sandy Gould from the University of Birmingham, Anna Rudnicka and Dave Cook from UCL, and Joe Newbold and Marta Cecchinato from Northumbria University, we created a website called eWorkLife that provides advice on how to use your technology to implement digital self-regulation strategies that can help remote workers both to get their work done when they're working and also disengage from work at the end of the day to enable them to recover from work stress. We advertise this on social media and also via some work-based mailing lists. And the website basically includes information about the scientific evidence that supports these different strategies and guides people through how to implement them to help them transition, I guess, into remote work. And we made this advice free to anyone who wanted to access it. But we linked it at the same time to a citizen science project. So in return for people assisting us by completing a questionnaire about their experience of working from home, we provided guidance as to which of these strategies that we listed on the website were likely to be of most use to them. And between the 20th of April and the 20th of May, we received responses from about 350 people, including many academics. And they told us about the challenges that they faced. And these fell into 3 different themes. So they had trouble setting up their workspace at home. They had trouble connecting with their colleagues, and they also had trouble just getting their work done. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about each of these 3. So first of all, getting their workspace set up. Many people had problems with this. Unsurprisingly, not everyone has a home office space at home, somewhere they can dedicate to getting their work done. And for those who did, they certainly hadn't expected to have a separate home office space for each member of their household. Some people struggled living in a small space. So one of our participants said, I live in a single room with my partner. We both need to have phone calls for work. And I'm doing a lot of writing at the moment. Doing these things at the same time is really hard. And one particular difficulty was having to use the same space for both work and relaxation. So a participant told us, Monday mornings are very difficult because I spend Sunday relaxing there and then I return to the same location on Monday and I have to change my mentality to work thinking. In terms of connecting to others, people felt simultaneously as though they spent too much time on Zoom connecting with others and too little time properly connecting with others. When they'd spent most of their day on Zoom in meetings, they couldn't face spending yet more time in the evenings trying to have a casual chat with someone. People found the video meetings difficult, so the absence of body language cues make it difficult to read people or to know when to speak, which leads to people speaking over each other. And also presenting in a virtual world like this also has some kind of weirdness to it in that I can't see any of the audience. So we lose all of these cues that we're used to understand how people are understanding our message. So the increase in remote meetings that people had to engage in was also something that they complained about. So one of our participants said that they often felt zoomed out. So at the end of the day of multiple Zoom calls, couldn't be bothered to engage with friends via a social Zoom call. But in addition to this kind of overload of interaction in this way, people missed having different type of interaction. They missed the water cooler chats, opportunities to go for lunch with their colleagues, to have the chance to catch up over a beer at the end of the day. And this loss of ad hoc communication made it difficult to get work done. Because as well as removing valuable social interaction with colleagues, people had ordinarily used these opportunities to coordinate activities, but also to build bonds, to build relationships with their colleagues. Or someone's got their microphone on. So some participants also told us how they felt lonely. They really missed this daily interaction with their colleagues. And others told us how the difficulties of socializing over the internet were just something that they couldn't really cope with anymore. So they commented that having an informal chat now takes a lot of organizing. It wasn't something that they really wanted to engage with on top of everything else they were dealing with. These kinds of informal conversations are really important in a work context because they're one of the key ways in which we build good, trusting relationships with each other that lead us to working well in a team. The third problem was that of just actually getting their work done. So being at home for work and in a home where there's potentially lots of other people there too, meant that people had to deal with additional new distractions that they weren't used to having to deal with whilst trying to get their work done. So this included noise from neighbours, interruptions from delivery drivers. Several participants found it hard to ignore home-related responsibilities such as chores, and found it really easy to kind of divert their activity to other home-based activities. As one participant explained to us, it's harder not to be distracted at home during the working day when doing essential but less engrossing tasks. So it's easy to snack or to watch a video or similar before getting back to work. And they noted that this was something that they didn't really experience this in the same way when they were in the office. One of our participants says it's difficult to sit here and focus for a long period of time without getting up and wandering around, which is not so easy in the office. So there's something about the office environment that often provides us with a social context that supports us in getting our work done, in focusing on our work. But for many of these people who are trying to work at home, caring for children was both the most common distraction as well as really the most taxing added responsibility. Whilst many participants without caring responsibilities commented on how they'd reflected on their work-life balance during this period, parents rarely did so because they were always working. They're either fulfilling their professional responsibilities of trying to get their work done, or they're doing a different type of work and caring for their children. And they told us about how they felt that the schools were putting additional pressure on them to help the children to finish their work, whereas they felt that they just wanted to support their children who were understandably slightly traumatized by the whole situation. And the parents just wanted to be able to be parents in that situation. And I think one of the particularly difficult things that came up around this issue was the fact that, particularly with younger children, they didn't understand why parents had to work. They weren't used to their parents having to do that in the home environment. And so they might hear a parent might hear a child asking for them and then find it really difficult to concentrate on their work. So in addition to all of these environmental distractions, they're obviously also distracted by the larger situation that we've all found ourselves in. And people reported spending lots of time watching the news and reading up on the news and trying to understand what was happening with the pandemic. So these distractions and interruptions led to extended working days. So when your day is interrupted by all sorts of different things to get the same amount of work done, you just have to kind of extend that work into the evening. And this led to feelings of never really being able to get away from work. There was always more work to be done. People always felt that they weren't being as productive as normal, so there was an extra backlog of things. And they found it really difficult, therefore, to properly relax. And of course, these feelings of increased stress and exhaustion make it even more difficult to get work done. So they found themselves in this vicious circle of always being at work and not really having the opportunity to properly recover. So I think that playing games offers a solution to 2 out of 3 of these problems that we're all facing. So when colleagues and our students are facing difficulties with connecting to others remotely, I think games can help us to create teams who trust each other and cooperate effectively. And when we're feeling like we're not getting anywhere with our work because we're exhausted, games offer us a real opportunity to disconnect from work and recover from work-related stress. So in the rest of this talk, I'm going to describe some of the studies we've done that provide evidence for these claims. So I'm going to tell you about 2 pieces of work that I've done using games to create connections between people in a work context. The first is work that was done with Emily Collins and Frank Lee using the game Flashbulb. And you can see a little example of what that game looks like in the top right-hand part of the image on the slide. So this game is quite a simple icebreaker, and it was designed to help people at academic conferences to network with people who they didn't know. The networking is a really important but often extremely stressful part of academic life. Not all of us are extroverts and feel very confident walking up to people who we don't know. And so using things like icebreakers can really help people to make that initial connection. Now, the majority of examples of existing networking games require players to interact with each other as part of the game. So they don't actually bypass this stressful part of networking. If anything, they actually force you to engage in it. But in contrast, actually, many other games successfully encourage interaction between players whilst avoiding causing that kind of stress. So it's in many games, the kind of social interaction side is something that's an optional extra and not something that is kind of like a core part of the game necessarily, or something that we're forced into doing. So I can see my name coming up in a chat. It's distracted me. With this game, what you have to do is you set up your account in there, and you take a selfie and you upload that into the game. And and then other players will get given you as a target. And when you receive a target, the idea is that you wander around this conference and you try and find the person who's the target, and you take a photo of them. And if you take a photo, then there's a matching process. And as long as you've taken a photo of the right person, you can progress in the game. But the thing that's unusual, I suppose, in this game, in terms of it being a networking game, is that it doesn't force you to talk to those people, but it does give you an excuse to go and talk to people. So players can choose whether they want to go and start a conversation with their target or not. So we deployed this game in 2 different situations. One at an academic conference, that was at the KaiPlay conference, and we also used it with in an induction session at the start of the academic year with our students at UCL. And we interviewed players afterwards, and in the analysis of those interviews, we identified some interesting themes. So we found that despite the fact that it didn't force people to go and talk to others, that it did actually successfully encourage this and enable this and widen the scope of the people that that the academics might otherwise interact with. People tended to use it as an excuse. So if it was someone who they felt comfortable within the context of the game to go and talk to, they might go and initially ask if they could have permission to take their photograph. But if they didn't feel comfortable doing that, then they could just kind of stay out of that. People really commented on how part of the game's success was because it fitted really well with both the physical co-location of the event in which we deployed it, the group of people who we were using, and the schedule. So we had a particular time in which the game was being played. But of course, this kind of game isn't going to help us cope with remote working because it really relies on people being physically co-located. So we also know that when we're trying to build the kind of good working relationships, building teams with people, we need to do more than just know people at a superficial level. We need to do more than just break the ice with them. We need to find ways to really create stronger bonds where we can really develop cooperative relationships. So given the challenges that we're facing right now, we need to think about ways in which we can really try to develop those. Now it's gone too far. Okay, so this is work that was conducted with Evelyn Tan, which we presented at Kai Play last year. And we were interested to see whether we could use games to help teams build these kind of trusted relationships. We were particularly interested in like the remote work context. So we know, of course, that in many leisure contexts, people do really develop quite strong social bonds with other people, and that this often develops over quite extended periods of time. So one of the things we were really interested in was to see whether just playing for a relatively short amount of time might help people to create these kinds of connections with people. And although several studies had already begun to explore ideas around this, they tended to measure people's willingness to be vulnerable or to connect with other people rather than actually looking to see whether we could find evidence of this playing out in people's behaviour. So in this study, we created virtual teams of strangers and we had them interact with each other over a video call using Google Hangouts. And in teams of 4, they either played an icebreaker activity or they played Space Team. So Space Team is a multiplayer cooperative mobile game in which players are assigned a random control panel, which is of a spaceship. And so you each have a part of the overall control panel. And it has buttons and switches and sliders and so on it. And players have to coordinate their actions with each other in order to complete the game. And players receive certain instructions, but the instructions they receive may or may not relate to their own panel. So you might receive an instruction which you can then respond to on your work panel, but it's quite likely you receive an instruction where you don't have the control for that, and you therefore need to convey it to other people. So this kind of situation leads to all sorts of hilarious behaviour where you end up shouting something like "grease the pro rod" to other people, and the noise builds up quite quickly. So of course you need to also be listening to other people in order to respond to the instructions that they might be shouting. So whilst when playing this kind of game, it might take a few moments before people feel comfortable yelling at one another in this way. Game has really clear, shared, independent goals that creates this kind of context of risk and uncertainty, but necessitates this interaction, this careful interaction and coordination with players. So we thought this might be exactly the kind of game in which sort of bonds we were looking to create might be able to be formed. So in our study, after either playing this game or taking part in a traditional icebreaker activity, we had teams take part in a game of Day Trader. And this is a type of prisoner's dilemma game where there's a conflict between the individual's best interest and that of the group. And we found that the teams who had played Space Team cooperated in Day Trader more effectively and were more successful in that kind of game. So it seems that playing these kinds of games might enable us to develop these kinds of trusted bonds with teammates that can really lead to the formation of solid online teams who can work together more effectively. And interestingly, we can see that the impact of this happening really quite quickly in our study. So I now want to just address the second problem that I highlighted, that of getting things done at work. And really, part of the difficulty in being able to be productive is that we need to bring our best selves, and that has to be someone who is well rested, who's recovered from the stresses and strains of their previous workday, and are now in a position to put their energy into the new task that they're undertaking today. So to recover from acute stress, we need to engage in activities that do four things. They have to help us to psychologically detach, so to put work aside and not think about it anymore. They have to help us to relax, bring down our levels of arousal to a healthy level. We have to experience mastery over challenges that are put to us. And we also have to feel in control over our environment. Now, many leisure activities help us to achieve some of these things. For example, reading books and watching movies can help you detach and relax. But games can help you do all four of these things. Their interactive and engaging nature is particularly effective in helping us to detach and relax. And they also provide us with this opportunity to experience mastery and feel in control of our environment. So this is work that was done with Emily Collins, who is now a lecturer at Cardiff University. And we were interested to discover whether some types of games might be better for supporting recovery than others. We surveyed nearly 500 participants to investigate how much time they spent playing games, which kinds of games they played, and we took measures of their recovery from work stress. So we used questionnaire-based measures to look at that. We found that the total number of hours that were spent playing digital games per week was positively correlated with overall recovery. So the more that people played games, the better recovered they seemed to be. But the strength of these relationships varied with the types of games they tended to play, with first-person shooters and action games being the most highly correlated. So the fact that not all types of games had the same kind of impact suggests that some game characteristics might be more important in this kind of relationship. For example, when we just looked at the gamers who told us that they developed online relationships with other gamers, we saw that this kind of online social support mediated the relationship between the digital game use and the recovery. So that's perhaps another thumbs up for games like Space Team. But this study relied on self-report, was only correlational. So we couldn't really be sure from this that these games would really lead to this type of effect. So to address this, we conducted a series of experiments. The first one was a lab-based experiment in which participants we created a need for recovery by giving them a work task, and then we had them do one of three interventions. So either they played a puzzle game, or they engaged with a mindfulness app, or they played with a fidget spinner. And the results showed that in the game condition, we saw increases on measures that were indicative of improved recovery when we compared it to the others. So that was looking promising, but it's one thing to do something in a lab and quite another often when you try to deploy it in the real world as an intervention. So we then did a separate study, which was a field study, where we had working professionals either play a digital game at the end of each day, or engage in a mindfulness app when they arrived home. And they did this for 5 days in a week. And for those who were in the digital game playing condition, their daily recovery experience increased during the course of the study, whereas for those in the mindfulness condition, it decreased. And we did interviews with our participants afterwards, and those who were in the game condition told us about how the game really created an opportunity to detach from work and to stop thinking about it. So it was a really good way of distracting themselves from thinking about work. And for some of them, not only did it help them to feel more relaxed, but it actually even restored their energy levels. They told us about how there were daily differences in these sorts of experiences, and they found it particularly beneficial if they'd had a very busy or a stressful day. And the third theme was about the routine and scheduling of playing every day. So having this activity bookend the day to help them transition out of work mode and into home mode, particularly beneficial for kind of creating and maintaining this idea of a work-life boundary. So the idea that I've stopped work, I'm doing this transition activity, and after this, I don't go back to doing my work. And this idea is something that's come up in our investigations of people working at home during the pandemic too. So finding a way of ending the workday and sort of powering down from that can be particularly difficult. So it seems that actually playing a game as a part of an end of workday routine might be really useful. And I think during a time when often the only thing that is between our work space or our work and our home space might be the matter of getting up from one chair and moving to another, these kinds of daily practices might be really helpful. So to conclude, I want to argue that as a way to survive and even perhaps to thrive in academic life, we need to play more games. Playing games with our colleagues can really help us to strengthen our relationships with them. If we're responsible for welcoming new members of staff to teams, then we can use games as part of these kind of ice-breaking onboarding practices. Use games like Space Team to help to build really good relationships with them that help them integrate into the team well. If you're an academic, then you might consider building the playing of games into your courses with your students. For example, if your students might need to work in a team and you're going to use some kind of breakout room for doing that, you might have an opportunity where you're going to introduce the students to using that technology, and you want to give them something to do in that breakout room. Well, perhaps you could get them to play a game like Space Team, because then, as well as understanding how that technology is working, they have the opportunity to have a bit of fun and to begin to develop those initial team working relationships with each other. And as we come up to the holiday season, play games with your friends and family. It's a great way to disconnect and relax and recover from work, and provides us with a fun way for strengthening those relationships too. Thanks very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Anna. If anyone has any questions for Anna, I see that I have one here. If you could put it in the chat.
Wait, maybe just before the questions, could you please all applaud? Just press F4, please. This was a great speech. Thank you, Anna. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, too. Perhaps I should also go to this. I lost myself.
Where are you, Janneke? Yes, come up on stage. That will be better.
Yes.
That way we can see you. Thank you.
So I have some questions, but so I'll start with that first. It's from Stephanie Schürrle. First of all, it was very interesting to hear, Anna, so thanks a lot. Stephanie Schürrle, she's asking, how's the experience with older people who are not so used to computer games? Do they get frustrated with playing these games, or does it work as for young people anyways?
Okay, so I think we can sometimes make the mistake of thinking that all older people are the same. And we can characterize older people as not being very technologically literate, but actually many of them are. Like, many of them have their own devices. They have smartphones and tablet computers, and actually might be really willing to interact with people through a game. I think games are the kind of thing that really bring people together, and traditionally we've used things like board games to strengthen the relationships within families. So we have older people playing with their grandchildren, for example. And many of these board games have been digitized. So of course you can play Scrabble online, you can play chess online, you can play Monopoly online. There's all sorts of kind of like the old traditional games that many of us grew up with, which we can use as a way to introduce older people to playing online, I think.
Thank you. Stephanie actually has a follow-up question, and she's asking, because she was not so precise, so she meant actually people who's not used to playing game. But she's asking how much time you should plan actually to get people to get used to it.
Get used to playing a game online?
Yes. Or in the new environment, like now we're in the world.
Well, I think, you know, that's one of those questions where I'm able to just say, well, it depends, right? There are, of course, some games where it takes a long time to really become proficient, and where if we were taking any novice user, we would expect them to perhaps to have to invest quite a period of time before they would be able to even play. But I think a lot of the games we're familiar with, the games that are on mobile devices, a lots of the kind of casual play games are really very accessible to a wide number of people, and are probably one of the easiest ways to introduce people to playing online.
And the Space Team game, as you mentioned, how long would that take?
So it's the kind of game where you can pick up and play very quickly. I haven't tried it with a group of older users, or with people who aren't used to using technology. But certainly it's the kind of thing where we didn't have to train our participants to in how to play the game. It's the kind of thing you can pick up very quickly. And when I've seen my children play it with their friends, it's the kind of thing that as soon as it's introduced, they can play really well.
Good, thank you. Let me see if I have any more questions from the audience. It doesn't look like that so far, but I have one. You said that it's good, of course, for icebreaking, to using that for new colleagues. Now we get a lot, since a lot of us been in home office for a long time, and we're getting a lot of new colleagues in. How is your experience with playing a game together with new people, not knowing anyone else, and those being playing together or working together for 5-10 years?
Well, I think there are lots of situations where we might play we engage in these sort of fun activities. So things like quizzes, like if we have a broad definition of games and we think of that as part of like a, one kind of example, that's the kind of thing that I think we often do with our work colleagues, that we might have a end of year quiz or something. And I think those are, depending on the way those are set up, those can sometimes also provide a really rich opportunity for strengthening those connections, because they provide a different way of interacting with people, and a way of an opportunity to be in a team with someone who you might not ordinarily work very closely with, but is perhaps in your organization or in your department. I think it would be really interesting to look at how we might be able to build playing games into an onboarding process that perhaps a human resources department might be creating for their staff. So people have had to really adapt their ways of working, obviously, over the last 9 months, and think about how, when we recruit new staff, how do we make them feel part of the organization, part of the team? And typically we do that by giving them lots of training, and those things are not always huge amounts of fun. And introducing fun activities, I think, could be a really helpful way of getting these bonds that are so important, and that we're kind of missing out on those opportunities because we don't get to bump into each other on the corridor.
Thank you. I have got 2 new questions here. It's from Liam. He's asking, the Space Team is a great icebreaker game, but do you have any experience including this style of icebreaker games to people who's very game skeptics, or do not or don't take games seriously at all?
Well, I think the thing is that they don't have to take games seriously. They don't have to, I think, to get these benefits. This is what we've seen in our study, that our participants weren't aware that they were having this intervention in order to try to change their behavior. So I think it's the kind of thing where you could dress it up as oh, we're just going to do an ice-breaking activity, and they don't need to take it very seriously themselves in order to really get those benefits out of it. I think people are perhaps open to the idea of doing icebreakers. They might think playing Space Team is a bit of a strange icebreaker, but if we were going to choose amongst a range of ice-breaking games, then this is the kind of game that I think we might want to recommend to people.
Thank you. We also have some more question here, and we don't have that much time.
Just one more question.
Yes. So we have one good here, because it leads to a very interesting topic. In your experience, Anna, how is it the use of games in the context of being economical? Like development time and installation time. How's that for the training costs?
Well, I suppose, in contrast to many of the people who are here at the conference today, who are interested in developing their own games, the kinds of games that we've been using, so when we're using Space Team, these are commercial off-the-shelf games, and in our paper we describe how you might go about selecting one of those games in order to pick one that might work in this kind of context. So I think that if you aren't in a position to be able to develop your own game, there are ways of going about choosing one that already exists that might work for you. But we can use those same requirements to really drive game design, to think about what are the key components that we would need to put into a game. if it was to produce this kind of effect. And then the key thing really would, if we were designing a bespoke game, is to think about, well, what are the added things that we might want to do that are specific for the context in which we are wanting to deploy it. So I guess perhaps you might think about opportunities the way that you have in your treasure hunt later on, to think about how you might embed information about the organization, for example, into that kind of game. So I think you can take these key ideas about what we think are the effective components in these sorts of games, and then think about how they might drive the design of other games that could be used in different contexts.
Thank you very much. There are some more questions in the chat, so if you could have a look at that later, Anna, that would be great.
Yeah, I will do.
And I'll come back to you later using the old-fashioned emails. So
okay.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Yes, thanks again, Anna. If maybe the audience, some of you said that they couldn't clap. Maybe you could stand up and clap, F4 to clap. And you can also do a dance if you want. Just get up and move your bodies while we set up the next conference. Well, the next paper session, Riccardo Berta is going to come up on scene. So if you want to dance, just click on your name and do a dance move. And if you want to do a backflip like I did before, you can do /flip, write /flip in the public chat. Let me see your flips, please. And thank you so much, Anna, for that very interesting speech. It is recorded and will be broadcast on YouTube, and you'll be able to see it on YouTube again during the year. It is on the Serious Game Society YouTube channel.
Okay, thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure. Riccardo, I'll let you present the next session.
Okay. Welcome everybody. Thank you, Isa, and also all